when you live outside of the tropics, your go-to for pigeon peas is usually frozen. I got this in the frozen section, and it's about 1.5 pounds of frozen pigeon peas. I'm just going to top it up with water. I'm going to put it up to boil and allow that to boil for about 20 minutes. I'm going to pour that water out, and I'll do the same thing again for 20 minutes. And the reason for doing that is twofold. One, it's going to help tenderize those peas. It takes a while to cook, so we need to tenderize it a bit. But more importantly too, and the reason why we're going to do it 2 times, is bring it up to a boil, cook it for 20-25 minutes, dump it out and redo it, is because the peas, and the water is still cool, these peas have a sort of a sap in it, and it can be a bit bitter. Once you don't pre-cook it, you will run into bitter tasting peas in your dish. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to Caribbean cooking, pigeon peas is not your little green peas that you make mushy peas with. This here is called Congo peas or pigeon peas. As the peas bubble away there, I'm going to shift our attention now to the shrimp. And I don't know if you guys can see over here, I have my potatoes, 6 medium-sized potato already cut up. It's just in water there, just so it doesn't oxidize and go a different color on me. But as far as the shrimp goes, honestly, this is the smallest shrimp I can get right now. I've tried several different supermarkets. Yo, I don't know what's going on, man. Peeled, deveined, washed with the juice of half of a lemon and water, and it's ready to be seasoned. We got sea salt. You can use any salt you want. I've got some black pepper. We're gonna need some olive oil in there. And of course, Caribbean green seasoning. Just gonna pour that on there. And we're gonna give that a good mix. Caribbean green seasoning, if you are unfamiliar with Caribbean cooking, let me zoom in so you guys can see it. It is basically a blend or puree of all the herbs we like using in our dishes, and it goes into just about everything we cook. Along with those herbs, we've also got garlic in there. I've got seasoning peppers, or what we call pimento peppers, and I do mine in olive oil so it retains that nice vibrant green, and you capture the essence of the herbs by using olive oil. A lot of people use water, some people use vinegar. Not for me. So basically all I'll do now is give that a good mix just to make sure every shrimp gets coated in that salt, pepper, and Caribbean niceness. Yeah, let's call it Caribbean niceness from now on. Yeah, well, at least today, you know, that green seasoning, I'm telling you, boy. And the French-speaking Caribbean got their version, the Spanish-speaking Caribbean got their version, and, you know, the English-speaking Caribbean, we representing too. I mean, let that sit for about 5 minutes. So this is the second batch of water. So now I'm going to drain it and set the peas aside. And as I do so, we can do a little switcheroo. We're going to put a pot here and get that all fired up and ready to start. They're going to start changing color and they're going to start curling. So this is where you're going to fish them out and we're going to set them aside. The residual heat is going to cook them. Plus we'll add them back into the pot later. So don't worry about undercooking it. The problem is we can easily overcook them. So into that bowl, and we're going to set this aside. In the same pot, we're going to hit it with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. If you want to use vegetable oil, if you want to use coconut oil, totally up to you. Then we're going to go in with some sliced onion. A nice big whack of garlic. I've got about 6 large cloves of garlic that I just smashed. I like it spicy, so 1 entire scotch bonnet pepper, seeds and everything. We've talked about this. If you want to control the heat a bit, you can remove the seeds and the white membrane surrounding the seeds. I like it hot, I like it spicy. If spicy is not your thing, you don't need to add that. If all you have is pepper flakes, by all means use your pepper flakes. Or alternatively, if all you have is habanero or jalapeno or whatever spicy pepper you have on hand, Thai chili, feel free to rock that. I'm going to turn my heat down to low and let that go. I want that to sort of build that flavor because we already got that shrimp in there. And now it's all about the garlic and the onion and that scotch bonnet pepper. It's been about 3 minutes, and I'm telling you, the kitchen is smelling incredible. I'm gonna go in with some black pepper. We already seasoned the shrimp with black pepper, but there's always reason to add more black pepper. Trust me on that. The other thing I like adding in there is I have some of my dried curry leaves. I'm just gonna toss that in there. That's going to add a lovely flavor later on into the dish, but I want to waken that up. It's dry, so I want to sort of toast it with that hot oil there. Then it's time to add the star of the program. We've got curry powder, and I'm using my own blend. I'd highly encourage you to use something out of the Caribbean. We got to support our own. Nothing wrong if you have a favorite curry powder that's made in the Caribbean. I like supporting my own people, you know. I'm just going to move that curry powder around to sort of toast it in the oil. The whole idea is to allow the different spices, and we've got the curry leaf that tried to make an escape there, to allow the spices which makes up that curry powder to bloom. We will need half a cup of water, so get that ready as this toasts. Notice how nice and dry the bottom of the pan is. Everything is clumping together. Here's where we're going to hit it with that water. And that water serves two purposes. One, it will help us to deglaze the bottom of the pot here. So using a spoon, scrape the bottom there. We want to pick up all of that fond on the bottom there. Yeah, curry doesn't make fond too. And two, we want to cook out the rawness of the curry. And what I mean by that is, if you don't do this step here, I find that when the dish is done, completely done, you get a sort of a raw sort of taste, where the spices were not cooked properly at the back of your tongue. You know, I guess it's a raw taste. It's hard to describe, but I've experienced it before. And to be honest with you, it is not a nice taste. We're going to bring that up to a boil, and we want to reduce it down and go back to the oils. And in that process, we cook out the rawness of the curry. There's bare niceness happening in the pot here. It's exactly where I want it to be. It's reduced down. And you notice that separation when I pass the spoon on there. What we're going to do, we're going to crank up the heat, burn off all that liquid, and then we're going to add the pre-cooked pigeon pre-cooked pigeon peas to the pot. Pigeon, what the flick? You can hear that sizzle, which means that liquid is burning off. We've got a nice thick slurry on the bottom here now. I'm just going to give that another 30 seconds. You notice we have the oil starting to show up that we started off with. So in goes all of that pigeon peas in there. We're going to hit that with a stir just to coat the pigeon peas in that base, that curry base that we created there. And remember earlier I showed you guys we had potato all peeled and just waiting to enter the programming today. So we have that on hand, but for now, another minute, and then we'll add the potato to here. And we're going to give that a good mix. And you're watching the potatoes and you're probably thinking, wow, Chris, that's some big mako-sized piece of potato in there. There's a reason. Everything Uncle Chris has dropped on here, there's always a reason behind it. One, and the only one. When that cooks down, it's going to start to melt. And I want to maintain some of the potato. So what's going to happen, that's going to melt, because we want it to melt. And when I say melt, I mean it's going to dissolve in cooking. That's going to help thicken up the gravy, the overall gravy. So we purposely left it big with the intention and knowledge that it is going to reduce down and get smaller as we cook it. Salt, nope, we didn't forget salt. So again, you're going to go in with whatever salt you like using. I might like using sea salt. Give that another quick stir. Remember that water I told you guys to reserve in the same bowl we marinated the shrimp in. That is where that comes into play. We're going to crank up the heat now, and we're going to bring this up to a boil, and we're going to then reduce it to a rolling boil and let that cook away, bloop bloop, until everything is nice and tender and falling apart. Well, the potato anyways, we just spoke about that. It will take a few minutes before it starts coming up back to that boil there. So you're starting to see the bubbles on the side. I'm just going to give that a quick stir. And like I said, you want to have it to go on a sort of a gentle bubble, sort of a simmer. I'm going to put the lid back on, and I'm going to leave a crack or slightly ajar just so the steam can escape. And that's going to cook until everything comes up nice and tender. It's been going for just over an hour. It's about an hour and 10 minutes. I added a further cup of water to it because as it reduces, of course, you're going to have to add some water. This is exactly where I want it to be. So at this point, I'm going to taste it, adjust the salt. Then I'm going to use the back of my spoon and I'm going to crush some of that potato. Just hit each one a little crush like that, a little press down. And what that's going to do is it's going to release the starches in that potato, and it's going to help thicken up the gravy. Now bear in mind when you're doing this, you don't want to crush it all the way, just a little crush. Bear in mind that once this cools down, it will thicken up a lot more. I'm going to give this another 2 minutes after I taste it and adjust it for salt, and then we're going to finish things up with the shrimp that we pre-cooked and some greenery at the end. But prior to adding the shrimp, what I like to do, something I learned from my mom, some anchar masala. Visit your favorite Caribbean grocery store, you'll get that in there. And some roasted ground cumin. Mix that in there. That's gonna give it that depth of flavor, that lovely, that's the best way to finish off one of these sort of traditional Caribbean curry dishes. I'm just gonna let that cook for 1 more minute. I want to pull out all of that there, and that cumin, that earthy flavor and smell from that cumin and the anchar masala, brilliant. Now if you cannot get anchar masala, I would just double up on the roasted cumin, or what we call geera. Now, as I said, it's going to thicken up considerably once it cools down, so I have that in mind. I'm going to turn off my heat, give that another quick stir. Have your bus-up short roti, your dal puri roti, your sada roti. We've got all those recipes on CaribbeanPot.com. This is the perfect dish for roti. Now, we're not finished yet. I turn off the heat. I'm going to add back all that shrimp in there, juices and everything. I want the residual heat to pick up all that nice shrimp goodness in there. I'm gonna hit that a stir just to tuck everything down under that warm, cozy blanket of curry peas and potato. I'm gonna put the lid on there and let that sit for about 5 minutes. We're just reheating the shrimp. Remember, the whole idea is not to overcook the shrimp. We're just reheating that shrimp in the sauce. Sup, soldiers? Listen, if you enjoy this recipe, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and click that bell notification thing. If you've made the recipe, take a picture and send it to me. Email address down here. I mean, trying to tell people the email address, then Butts will take the address and do all kind of thing with it. And tag me on Instagram at Caribbean Pot. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being in my kitchen with me today. Irene. The very final step I've got some chopped up Shado beni. If you cannot get Shado beni, you can use cilantro. Shado beni is also called culantro. And I have some frozen wiri peppers. Boom bam, that's going in there. I'm going to hit that a quick little stir. Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com. Always a pleasure having you all in the kitchen with me. Curry pigeon peas with potato and shrimp. I do hope you all are able to give this recipe a try. It is simply outstanding. Always a pleasure having you guys here in the kitchen with me.